We learn from elders. We learn from survival. We learned from each other. For trans guys. Wisdom you can feel. Real talk. Collective care. Hey everybody, and welcome to For Trans Guys. My name is Megan.
I'm Zander.
And I'm JJ.
And we're here, and I'm so excited that we are.
Yeah.
What
are you talking about?
I've been thinking a lot about how there are waves in my life when I am surrounded by people but feel utterly lonely inside. And sometimes it's because I wear like 18 different hats for jobs because overachiever trans man trying to make sure I can always pay my mortgage no matter how the world shifts and changes in feelings about trans people. And so sometimes when you like have a lot of jobs, there's not a lot of other people who are kind of the same. And other days it's because I am someone who like just got a lot of degrees. And if you're not around a lot of people with a lot of degrees, you can feel like you're the odd person out. And then there are some days where I'm like the one with a family and I feel like I'm the odd one out because of that. And so I've been reflecting a lot about like the times when I go to a big party and I feel like I'm utterly accepted, and then the times when I don't, and trying to figure out, is it something inside of me? Is it something on the outside of me? Is it just how it feels to navigate the world these days? And there is this idea online that there is an epidemic of loneliness. I don't know how it feels for other people. I don't know if I even would have described it as loneliness if I didn't like hear about that or read about that. But I'm just wondering if there is this permission to talk about loneliness more, or is it something that we're just feeling more deeply these days? And I just wondered, hey JJ, do you ever get lonely?
I do, and it's a really provocative question too, because I am an introvert and I love sometimes alone time, and I need that solace to just refill my spoons, my mental health spoons. So, and at the same time, it can be kind of interesting to be in a room and feel very lonely around other people because I feel misunderstood or just not seen, or um, there's even a kind of loneliness that I've been experiencing just walking on the streets of San Francisco, where, and I think maybe I've mentioned this before. I as a trans man with a hood over my head because it's cold and a beard, am experienced very different by other people than I was when I didn't look this way. And so there's this kind of invisibility of like, ooh, I don't want to be near you, that I've been experiencing, and all of that combined together creates a kind of internalized loneliness that I think is maybe unique to the trans experience, but I think is also part of what we've been experiencing collectively as a society, living through COVID and separating ourselves from other people. And I still see the markers on the floors of 6 feet away of where we can't be touching or giving each other hugs, right? Like we need to give ourselves permission to not only give ourselves those ways of being with other people if that feels good to us, and at the same time I think we need permission to talk about some of these things as well. So I'm really, really grateful for you bringing up this topic, and I don't know that I have an answer other than when I'm in community, I am grateful for the intentional folks who are like, JJ needs some alone time. Let's just leave JJ alone for a bit and they will come back and then we'll all be okay again. We can hang out together. And that's not any dig on anyone else. It's just I'm a sincere introvert and I need some of that time. So I'm so grateful to be seen by community when people really understand that and just accept that that's JJ's way of being in the world. I don't know. Sam, did you have any thoughts about this or any experience with any of these topics?
Well, I remember I was probably about 3 years into my medical transition, and I was experiencing a type of disconnect or loneliness. And at the time, I was thinking about how what had shifted for me was a primarily female social circle to a primarily, a trans guy, so kind of still the same but different kind of social circle, where we were coming together because we were having a similar experience, but we wouldn't have probably been friends otherwise. You know what I mean? Like we were coming to discussion groups and going to events because we wanted to experience community. We wanted to hear people sing or dance, watch people dance, or just have conversation, listen to people talk about things like, what's it like now that you've been on T for 10 years versus those of us who were in the early stages. But then we'd be friendly with each other and then kind of go our own direction because we didn't have anything else in common most of the time. And so it took more effort to build friendships in a community that was made up of people that were coming together for a specific purpose, but not because of like a shared interest. And I think it was also the being out in public, just walking around by myself and noticing that the kind of eye contact I was getting was less, right? More, not as much eye contact with people. I would still look at people, but they wouldn't look at me as much, or be very brief. The encounters, I could almost always strike up a conversation with somebody that was a total stranger to me, anywhere that I was. I never had a problem with that. But all of a sudden, about that 3-4 year mark into medical transition, I wasn't approached as much. I wasn't. People weren't as friendly to me when I approached them, and so that really it bothered me a lot actually early on because I didn't understand what was going on. And I remember thinking at the time that maybe it's possible that men's lives are lonelier, that men are lonelier than women, because of the fears of getting too close or being judged, whatever it is. I have no idea. That's just my lens for it. I'm not sure if I'm correct, but the for me, what ended up happening was I had to make an adjustment. Like, okay, because I'm also an introvert, so I'm like, I'm an introvert who spent a lot of my life pretending I was an extrovert because I was so social. And then I realized at that point, like, oh, I can actually just be quiet. Like, I can do what I do and be social and be active, but I don't have to do it all the time. It was almost as if I felt like my a lot of my social engagements were not obligatory, but maybe socialized, right? Like when I was before I started transition, I would be around a lot of women, and women are chitty chatty, right? And so there was sort of an expectation that you'd be chitty chatty, and I didn't like it, but I learned to do it, and then I realized, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. And then, of course, being a social worker, I talk for a living, so then I wanted to talk even less. And so the loneliness piece started to fade away. But I remember it wasn't that long ago. There was a guy, a trans guy, who wrote an article. It might have been a blog article or might have been published in a magazine about experiencing loneliness. And it sort of started making the circuit. And then every once in a while it pops back up again. And it gets a lot of criticism, not so much from the community, but outside the community, from men and women who are like, well, what did you think was going to happen when you became a man or you presented as a man? Like, and it's like it's like the letter that I wrote, in the letters for my brothers, how I didn't know what I didn't know, right, about transition. And so just because people thought I was a guy, and even though I was transitioning and presenting as a guy, that didn't mean that I knew what it was like to actually grow up as a boy and a young man. I didn't know that many men experience life as a very lonely experience, and that's sad. But at the same time, I kind of enjoy that I don't have to be as chatty anymore. And I'm married, and we've been together almost 24 years, and so I always have somebody around because we're both homebodies. So I don't experience that loneliness anymore, but I did definitely experience it a lot as a teenager. I remember that experience. I remember telling my psychiatrist once in a session, I can be at a party in a house that's full. People are like, you can barely move, and I feel so lonely. And she was pretty judgmental about that, actually. I'm not going to go into detail about what she said because I don't want to pathologize people, but she was very critical of me talking that way, that it was something wrong with me. Yeah, in the access to category, that's all I'll say. For the clinicians, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do.
I had a real shift recently too in like thinking about loneliness, is because I went to this, it's Pride Month here in San Francisco, so there's like a million parties, and I was volunteering at one of them, and like was really delighting, like, oh wow, like I should definitely leave my house more. I normally go to a lot of events with JJ because I've just lived a lot of components of my life, and so sometimes people react strongly to me, like as a public figure. There was a period of my life where I had to wear a bulletproof vest in public because people knew that I was a trans person and it wasn't safe. And then on the other side, I experienced a lot of very extreme, like, wow, you're the most amazing person ever, and they don't really, like, I've never met them before. So there's a lot of extreme joy that maybe doesn't feel merited, and a lot of extreme hate that maybe doesn't feel merited. And that's harder to then like believe people when they say nice things if you only kind of encounter them in the extremes. But so normally I go to events with JJ. JJ wasn't available because they were on retreat, and so I went to this party anyway, and I had like a lovely time. And I realized, like, I've lived in this city for over 20 years. I know a lot of people, and I'm so delighted to be hanging out with them. I should hang out with people more. But then it was like, I wasn't the oldest person at this party, but like I felt old because it like 9 o'clock came around, and I'm like, this is my bedtime and I would like to leave now. And so it was like intermission in the show. And I was like, should I stay because I'm having so much fun? Or should I leave because I really wanted to go to bed? And so I went out. It was like in a theater. So I went out to the like foyer, and I was like, I'll just see how I feel. And I went out there, and there was the executive director of another trans organization was there. And I went to go hug that because I show up at all of their events, like in solidarity and in support. And they said, where's JJ? And I said, oh, JJ's on retreat. And they went, oh, good, because I'm so lonely. And then they grabbed me to kiss me like on the mouth. And I've been married for 12 years, everyone, not to JJ, to my wife. But like this person doesn't know me, but was just like, oh, good, I'm so lonely. And because JJ's not here, like I can kiss you now. They tried to, and it was like, I've worked with the homeless for a very long time. So I recognize when someone's drunk, and they're like, people would get very sexual harassment-y, handsy when I was female bodied and someone else was drunk. But this was a trans woman, and I'm a trans man. And so they like pulled me in to kiss me, but I was a lot taller than them. So when I turned my head, they kissed my neck and like held it, and then looked at me and was like, I am so lonely. And they just said it in this way of like, either you're going to be my physical person right now, or I am going to like die of loneliness. And it felt like a depth, like it felt like being hope and light and like faithful morality in the world normally is a thing I try to carry like a balloon kind of through a room when people are having a hard time. But this felt like someone holding on to you because they're afraid of drowning in the water, and they're probably going to drown you instead. And she ended up kissing me like 3 times, like in a like physically intimate way on my neck. And I just was like, yeah, I'm leaving now, and I'm going home. And instead of waiting for the bus, I'm getting an Uber because I'm getting out of here. And it number one, no one should have to like deal with those weird kind of sexual harassment, non-consensual moments. I'm still working on. I had hoped if I didn't have breasts, that they would just magically go away and I don't have to deal with it. But like the thing that I want to really say is that it made my loneliness feel in perspective. Like, yes, there are days when I feel lonely. There are days when I feel like I'm not the same as my peers and I'm not the same as the other humans in my friendship group. And maybe no one understands where I am in life, but I'm not that kind of lonely that I'm like drowning. And so I'm not making fun of that or mocking it, but it gave me a perspective of like, then the very next day, even though this bad thing happened, I didn't want to encourage on anyone. I had a different spirit of like, I'm not lonely. I'm really connected to community. I know whose presence I want to be in. Not that person who kissed me, but like, but so I sort of like started a new way of being in the world. And it just took that moment of seeing like, I'm not broken or I'm not like weird or different, that lots of people are holding loneliness and maybe I've got some of my life together. Like maybe I'm figuring it out. Right. And so I wish wellness to everyone in our trans community. And I wish love and consent on everyone in our trans community. But I just want to say that like, if loneliness is a spectrum like gender, like don't assume everyone you're standing next to is at a rosier, sunnier space. Because if you're making it through today, great, like good enough. If listening to three trans guys talk on a podcast is the way you don't feel alone, and then you go back into a rural space where no one else gets you, like good enough for today. Like if the best you can do is just not pull someone under when it's hard to swim, like you've got this.
It's possible that there are people who are listening that might be surprised to hear about a non-consensual engagement in community, right? Because I think we're led to believe that our community is safe and the outside world is unsafe, or that maybe we were unsafe prior to transition, and now that we are who we are now and we look the way we look now, that we're safe or safer. And I think that, you know, what your experience demonstrates, Megan, is that some of our lack of safety follows us into our new lives, so to speak. And that it's not only from outside of our community where we are at risk, it's also in our community. So people just be careful and don't automatically assume that because a person is from our community that they are trustworthy and safe. I'm not saying pretend as if everybody is unsafe and untrustworthy, you know, or act that way. I mean, but it'd be good to just know that it's a possibility. Unfortunately, I wish it weren't the case. I've had not that kind of situation, but other situations. And I really did. I went into my transition. One of the primary objectives of my transition was to become invisible and safe. And it didn't really work out that way. And that's because I was misinformed about men's lives. Men are not safer, right? There's more violence actually towards men. And so, but I didn't know that. And so I think it's just helpful for people we don't have to live as if we're on guard all the time and expect the worst to happen. But, you know, be careful.
And until then, bring a JJ.
That's right.
I don't know. Thanks for dipping into this conversation with me. It's been on my mind a lot lately, and trying to walk through it is something I thought you guys might be able to help with.
Absolutely.
So sorry that happened to you, and I'm grateful for you bringing this up, because I think us being mindful and being intentional about how we hang out with people and how we share space with people is really powerful. And I think that's a unique gift to a lot of trans folks who really spend time understanding their boundaries, understanding the way that they connect in community, and how they're being intentionally present as family or as chosen family, to show up for people in a way that's appropriate for both sides. And that's not an easy thing to do. Like, that is a real skill and art form for people to learn and to manage for themselves. And again, I'm sorry that has happened to you, and I'm grateful for your willingness to reflect on that and to come out on another note to say, I think that's one of your superpowers, is to come out on another note to say, hey, you know what, I'm not that lonely, and look, we're doing the best we can, right? And this is sometimes is good enough, to show up for each other like we are.
If your only options to get out of your loneliness are not healthy, and you live in an area where visiting might be possible, like, tune into some of the stuff that we've got planned in the next couple of months. In June, there'll be some opportunities to gather and come hang out with JJ and Zander and myself here in San Francisco. So stay tuned for some more announcements about that. In July, we've spoken about, if you're in the Portland area and you want to come hang out with JJ and Zander and I and some other pretty spectacular trans male authors, you can join us for that. There might be some future cities and spaces coming. If you've got ideas of places you want us to come, put it in the comments, and you never know. We might end up in a space near you.
Plus
well,
one.
I'm so grateful that everybody tuned in today and listened, and I hope you'll like and subscribe and do all of those things. But more importantly, take some time to care for yourself. And if you're feeling lonely, text or chat or email a friend, send out a pigeon, whatever is the best way to let someone know, and reach out, because if you've got good community, stay in relationship with them and chat with them. And if you don't have good community yet, type in the word boys with a Z and your town, and there might be a group already meeting. And if there isn't, go to transitionalwisdom.net, fill your name and information out in the comment section under 4 Trans Guys, and JJ will help create a community of conversation with you. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.